This episode is brought to you by our friends at Bamboo. Yes, I am sitting in the podcast room at the Bamboo Detroit location right now, which is where you have seen a ton of the Black Fridays podcast episodes. And the reason that is because Bamboo has been Black Friday's creative hub for the last couple of years. However, it's much more than our creative HQ. It's home to hundreds of entrepreneurs, creators, thinkers, and doers just like yourself. Now, whether you need a private suite that's customized to your liking so that you can effectively get work done, or if you need a space to be able to host a meeting or a conference call, Bamboo has flexible, creative spaces and a supportive community to match. Now, if you don't get anything from this message, I need you to do this right here. Go ahead, click the link to check out Bamboo's selection of private suites at any of their locations. That's right, any of their Bamboo co-work locations. And you can also find a link in the show notes as well to get those details. And it's time for you, yeah, that's right, you, to join the Bamboo community. That's it. Time to get into the show.
I've always been connected to sport. And once I figured out that I could combine the two loves, helping people, become and function as the best versions of themselves in their environments and sports, it's just a natural, easy ding, 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 ding for me as the provider of the services. But I think that there is a societal misconception about athletes not being considered to be a vulnerable population.
What up, though, Black Fridays family? Welcome back to another installment of the Black Fridays podcast. Before we get into today's episode, I need you to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, share some videos with your people, and let's keep this channel and podcast going. All right, now that we got that out of the way, I want to introduce you to somebody who is literally helping redefine what mental health for our athletes and people who are in sports entertainment looks like. Miss Ongeleke Turner, how you doing today?
Hello, I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And for anybody that's watching or listening, if she looks or sounds familiar, it's because we literally cut from the same cloth. This is my big sister, and I'm grateful to have you on the platform today and want to talk about some of the work that it is that you do with No Flag, No Foul, and then also your profession and background in education. But I first would like to start with, if you could give us a definition of what it means to be a clinical social worker.
Absolutely. So it means a lot of different things. I'll start by saying a clinical social worker typically has a master's degree in social work and a license. And that license is varies state to state. In Michigan, we have two different licenses that you could have. You could do a clinical license, which I have the clinical master social work license. You can also have a master's license, but be in macro social work, where you're not performing in a clinical realm or space, but you're doing more policy, advocacy, organizing, community, things of that nature. But with the clinical license, you're a practitioner and you're practicing in a space providing clinical care to individuals.
And so growing up, and I'm sure you can identify with this, when I hear social worker, I think about somebody who working with families to help them get benefits from the government and stuff like that. Like, how does that differ? Because that was my understanding of it coming up.
So funny story. That was my understanding coming up too. And I remember in college, I had a friend at the time who we were probably juniors, and she changed her major junior year, and she changed it to social work. And I was like, we about to graduate, you about to change your major, that's gonna add another year. And I was like, well, what you gonna do, take people's kids away? I was ignorant to what's all encompassing of social work. And it's so interesting that I've arrived here. A testament to God's plan. But, they say if you want to make him laugh, tell him what you think you got planned. But I had no idea how just dynamic and diverse social work practice was. And I had to share that story just because that was me. And here I am, a thriving social worker. But so, yes, to answer your question, that is why the social work discipline is so unique, because social workers are everywhere. Social workers work for the government. Social workers do help get resources for families. Social workers work in hospitals. Social workers work for the FBI. Social workers literally are everywhere.
For sure. And could you talk to us about how you're taking your social work background, your education and experience with that, and then now applying it to athletics, which is something that in years prior was taboo, but now is being transformative. And so, could you talk to us about no flag, no foul, and how you are taking those skills that you've acquired from your acquired profession and then being able to apply that to the sports world?
Yes, so I've been practicing in social work for 13 years now. My background is in clinical practice and mental health, substance use, and I've been working with various individuals in all type of different settings, providing care and treatment at those levels. Um, Sport has always been something that I've just kept so near and dear to my heart. And when I got my master's, back then, social workers were still in that place, working for the families, that grassroots, that, image of the social workers that I guess maybe a larger society may have in their minds. And, working in sport wasn't anything that I had been introduced to. And I for sure didn't see anybody who looked like me practicing in that space. So, as you mentioned, athlete mental health is something that's transformative. And it's, this movement where different practitioners are entering in those spaces. And social workers are actually working in those spaces and being able to make a significant impact in the lives of many athletes and sport communities and organizations across the world.
Nice. And I want to get more. I have more questions for you, obviously, but we're going to take a pause so I can introduce you to Freestyle Fridays, which you should know about by now.
Yes.
If you love your business like you say you do, and you want to protect that brand that you spent so much time creating, I need you to do one thing for me. Get your paperwork in order. And I already know what you're going to say. I don't have enough money to pay for a lawyer. I don't have time to deal with that. Well, listen, I got just the thing for you. Hold on. I promise. I got you. Don't even worry about it. The law office of Beverly Bill has you covered because they have on-demand, easy-to-use contract templates that you can leverage for your small business, for your content creator journey, and being an entrepreneur in general. The templates are easy to use, they're affordable, and they're created by someone who is not only a lawyer, but also a content creator themselves. What more could you ask for? So if you're really about getting to the bag, getting to these opportunities, and solidifying your brand and your business, make sure that you visit www.beverlybilllaw.com. Once again, that's www.beverlybilllaw.com. Hit the link right here and in the show notes. Tell them that Black Friday's podcast sent you. With that being said, let's get back into the episode. So, you got some bars for us? What you gonna do?
I am not rapping, but I do like rap.
All right, well, you can answer these questions for me, and I just need you to answer everyone and answer honestly.
I can do that.
All right, so we're talking about athletes. Who was your favorite athlete growing up? Who is your favorite athlete currently?
I cannot pick a favorite athlete, but I have so many, and I have so many different sports that I am involved with, like in terms of being a part of those communities. So I grew up running track and field, and I idolize a lot of track athletes. So if I had to pick one going old school, it's Jackie Joyner-Kersee. I also, so I do an old school track and field, Jackie Joyner-Kersee, and then I want to say Allison Felix. She's kind of old school, now because she's retired, but she is just a staple in the track and field community. So if I could pick two track and field athletes in a old school would be Jackie Joyner Kersey and then Allison Felix. A current athlete, I love so many athletes, and this is gonna be real. This is gonna get the people going, but Draymond Green is one of my favorite athletes.
Okay, it says a lot. All right. That's part and love and something different, but okay, we'll take it. What's a sport that you had no talent or skills in that you wish you could actually do?
Baseball. You know, we would play baseball growing up in like elementary school. It was a part of things back in the olden days. But I would always hit foul balls. I couldn't get the
To go.
get the motion right for it to be a legal hit. So I never mastered that.
Okay. So we're talking about wellness, social work, therapy, things in that nature. What's your favorite way to decompress or unwind?
Oh, I do enjoy exercise. I don't always feel that way like when I'm in those moments, but I do understand the grand scheme of things and how it makes my mind and body feel once I do complete the task. So exercise is a big part of my own mental wellness. I do make sure to have like time for my kind of clarity and solitude, like to myself. And I like the water. Rain is very calming to me. So lots of people don't like when it's raining, and it was raining a lot recently here, but that just soothes my spirit.
If you could have any athlete client, who would you like to work with? It might need to be Draymond.
No, Draymond's good. And Draymond's he started. I mean, I don't know Draymond. Let me put that disclaimer out there. I did meet him once, but I don't know him or what's going on with him or anything like that. But I do know that after he had some struggles, uh, on the court that were very publicized and have been seen, that he's been open about speaking to someone and having some involvement and some ongoing type of care for himself. So we support that, and we wish him well. I actually can see the work. I can see it, but I know I already said this was gonna get the people going. But I think that he's working on some things for himself. And I will work with a track and field athlete, and I don't want to say, I guess, a name per se. I don't want it to be insinuated that like I think these people need help in a negative way.
Mm-hmm.
But I will want to work with track and field athlete.
Okay.
Does that work?
Yeah, that's fine. We'll take that. And last but not least, since you are my sister, what's something that I did growing up that pissed you off?
Oh,
I'm sure it's countless.
So many things. It's so crazy that you are my best friend, even if I'm not your best friend. And that is my story, and I'm sticking to it. But we've been on a journey. And I think growing up, we weren't best friends. We weren't best friends. But we've grown to a place where we are nearly inseparable. This is embarrassing, but you used to bite me.
You bit me, but we.
Because you bit me first.
No, I can vividly remember a time when you bit me first, but I don't recall. My mind's a little fuzzy about biting you.
I'm too old to be biting you first.
I bet you wouldn't have bugged it back then.
Definitely bit me. I mean, you weren't too bad, honestly. I think just being the oldest is a different dynamic.
Yeah.
You get all the responsibilities, and your younger sibling gets to just kick their feet up and live on the throne.
Fair enough. Well, thank you for partaking in Freestyle Friday. Thank you for engaging in the randomness. And I wanted to ask you, go back into No Flag, No Foul, and if you could give us the download of the services that you actually provide for the athletes that you work with and the services that you have available in terms of counseling and working with them.
So yeah, so to back up, I started No Flag No Foul. It'll be 2 years this May, which is National Mental Health Awareness Month. So I say it was all aligned just because initially when I filled out the paperwork to create this, um, I filled out something wrong and it delayed it. So I actually filled it out in April, which would have been my start and, anniversary would be in April, but it got held up like a couple of weeks. So it ended up being May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month. So I thought that that was kind of like alignment for No Flag, No Foul, which is my athlete mental health consulting company that I started, like I said, in 2023. May 15th, 2023. So we'll be celebrating 2 years coming up on the 15th. So this is a professional space that is curated for athletes and those associated with the athletic communities. We do individual work with athletes. We do group work, serve as consultation to athletic organizations, coaches, we pretty much are all encompassing, and we do not leave out significant others of athletes and coaches and again those associated with the athletic community because um, this ecosystem is so important, and members who work and serve in it are literally with these people more than they're with their own families. And so just all encompassing athlete mental health services that could range from individual, group, um, presentations for teams, organizations, or coaches. We do programming. We are kind of like we're here and we are going to do what needs to be done. I am such a generalist clinician, but in a way that is beneficial, and I think it suits me because I can do so many different things and I'm trained to do them all. So I kind of classify myself as a well-rounded um, clinician who's able to kind of work and operate in all of these different spaces that are um, imperative to the athletes and the communities and their ecosystems.
So why focus on that specific group of people and not go the route of counseling, any and not any and everybody, but not as a specified group such as athletes.
Well, I think for me, it just naturally meshes. I've always been connected to sport. And once I figured out that I could combine the two loves, helping people, become and function as the best versions of themselves in their environments and sports, it's just a natural, easy ding 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 for me as the provider of the services. But I think that there is a societal misconception about athletes not being considered to be a vulnerable population. When you think about the exploitation that happens at various levels, pertaining to athletes, from a family level, from a university level, and standpoint, and histories of before when athletes, weren't able to monetize or, make money off their name, image, and likeness, which also now creates a different set of things to keep our eyes on. But athletes are a vulnerable population, and they do um, need specialized services that fit, their lifestyle and their culture. athletes are also humans, so I don't want to negate that part of who, these individuals are. They're humans before they're athletes. And so it's not to not focus on just general people, but it's to show that these people need specialized services, and they need to have um, places that they can go that can cater, to what their needs are, that culturally, mentally, performance wise, and especially for our black and brown athletes, they need to have various clinicians and feel represented in the choices, that they have to seek, services or treatment, if that's something that they desire or need to do.
And why do people have a hard time seeing athletes as humans?
I mean, you see on the internet about these parlays and all, and so that's just one thing. It's like, hey, these people, this is their livelihood. I understand, like, they missed a free throw, but like they be crashing out. These are people with families, like, and just because they might be considered to be successful, I have a little change in their pocket, that's all the more reason why they need support. Because the more money or success tends to be sometimes the more challenges or problems or, issues that someone may need help navigating. So I just think that it's just a misconception that they're successful.
Mm-hmm.
Ain't nothing wrong. They don't got no problems, So just kind of dehumanizing them, and me and other people, clinicians and others who work in support in the field, just reminding people that, like, these are humans.
And do you feel like the sports organizations, the different institutions, are they being progressive in terms of better serving the athletes that way?
Yes, overall, my answer is going to be yes. I think that it varies. If you're talking about a collegiate level, it's going to vary if they're D1, D2, D3, and so on and so forth, and what their institutions have in the budget for these services. That's going to vary. If you're talking about professional, it's going to vary team to team and how they set things up and their structure. But for the professional leagues, we'll just do NBA, NFL for an example. They have measures in place and people in position to be able to serve these communities and organizations and the people who work for them. Now, it depends on if they're going to be full time, they're going to be part time, So it kind of, to me, and maybe I'm biased, isn't a part time job, if you will, but they have some sort of representation. They have people or people that they can contract with to provide services, or they do it through their um, unions. So the NBPA, the NFL union.
Mm-hmm.
So it all kind of varies in how it's set up team to team. And if collegiate, it's a little bit different based on the program, how much um, budget they have for services and things. But I do feel still that there's a lot of work to do. And also that the ratios sometimes are just not manageable. If you put, let's just say you take a college campus and maybe they have like a few clinicians that service the athletic department, but they have like 75,000 athletes. You know what I mean? So it's like if everybody needed to see somebody,
they can't.
What does that look like? And if there's gonna be a time where like everybody's gonna need to see somebody, it might be unlikely, but just keeping those things into perspective, keeping those things in mind that like what type of care can we provide if this does happen? How much time can we spend or how does the caseload and ratio divide up? So just kind of other things that um can be worked on or tweaked to just like better overall have the services in place in case, things kind of jump off.
I figure you'd be the right person to ask this question in terms of how soon should, let's say, for example, a family or a educational institution should seek help like that for their professional, not professional, but for their athletes in general. Because I had the thought when we were watching, went to the game for Pistons versus Knicks, and I realized that the oldest person on that team is Tobias Harris, and I think he like actually no, Tim Hardaway is the oldest person on the team. Tobias right behind him. They 32 and 33. They calling them men unk. So it's a young woman, young man's game, regardless of what professional sports league that you're talking about. And so these people are naturally younger, but I'm curious as to how soon should we start to investigate people who are parents of athletes, or professionals, or maybe you're starting your professional career. How soon should you even start considering this for those individuals? Like, should it start in high school? Should it start in middle school, or when they're old, when they're of age?
So from my perspective, and I guess by that classification, I'm definitely an auntie and they aunts. So I feel like it's just so much different in this generation that individuals have to navigate, whether you're an athlete or you're not, in that subset of individuals who are, athletes. As soon as possible. The sooner the better, because when you start to instill healthy self talk, healthy coping skills, how do you manage your emotions and keep them balanced? That stuff takes practice. And I think once individuals grow and they get to college and they don't have those skills, then you kind of see behaviors and things manifest. The first time something happens and maybe they crash out or don't know how to navigate their biggest adversity. You're playing from a little bit from behind, if you will. It's not that it can't be worked on. Of course it can be, there's always ways that things can be worked on, but to answer your question, individuals, would benefit best by learning these things and practicing them as young as can be implemented. Because, for example, it's a different generation, different day and age from when I was in school and having to navigate different things. So, let's just say we've seen it. And I mean, okay, so let's look at what happened with Shador. Say he's not who he is and not from the family that he comes from, and he's been this number one top 10 prospect, and he falls like that and hasn't worked on healthy skills and how to manage emotions and how to like deal with something like that. It could be a different picture. And if you've been the best all your life and then you're not, you may not know how to kind of navigate something like that if there hasn't been practice along the way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And are there any institutions that you have seen that you feel like get it right in terms of being progressive with those working with athletes, or maybe it's a professional, like somebody that you might admire their work that has been at the forefront of stuff like this?
It's so many great people doing work in this space, and so many Black and brown people doing great work in this space, and it's just so rewarding. For me as a newcomer in the space of sport, pivoting and using my transferable skills to focus on athletes, but seeing just the great work. So it's so many people, and I don't want to ramble too much, or but I want to kind of give like an example from the school that you attended. So they have been doing this type of work for many years, and it may not have been like highly publicized, if you will, but they had unfortunately Greg Harden passed away.
Yeah.
And he was one of the, as far as we know, in the local forefathers of these types of, athlete mental health programming, and really, had some good things implemented at the University of Michigan, to my understanding, from someone just who's a researcher, who's, talked to people, and who, from what others have told me about their program there, and the things that they've been doing with athletes over the years, the University of Michigan. So I bring them up to say, I recall some years ago, I don't know why I was there with you. Maybe you just wanted to spend time with your big sister, or I didn't have nothing to do and you was like, come on, go with me. Maybe you feel bad for me or something. I don't know. But we went to the Welcome Home War Emmanuel
Yes. Yeah.
celebration. I have no idea why I was there, but I do remember meeting Mr. Harden and speaking to him. And I also, I don't know if I asked the question or someone in the audience asked it, but War Emanuel has a MSW degree. And it was asked, out of all your degrees, and I know he has a plethora of other, letters behind his name, out of all your degrees, like, which one is the most valuable? And he said, my social work degree, because you always have to know how to work with people. And so I didn't ramble and pivoted all over the world, but back to my original point, social workers are everywhere. And, it's been something that's up and coming, but there have been programs, I guess, I don't want to say silently, but kind of doing the work, over the years without it having like a real to do about it. So the University of Michigan is one program that I know that has had some things in place, before this transformative space that we're in now. They've been kind of chugging along the way, is what I've been told.
Yeah. So in your journey under what our first understanding of social work was, and then you actually pursuing that as a career, where did that jump happen? And once you got that understanding, how did that transition happen for you, as to say, this might be something I might be interested in?
So this is one of those tell God your plans and he laughs. This is a good story, because social work, I always say I didn't choose social work, social work chose me. That's actually exactly what happened. I went to school and got my undergrad from Michigan State University, go green.
We don't do that on here.
Go green. I got a bachelor's in pre-law. So in high school, I was part of explorers programs. I was doing mock trials at the Eastern District downtown, like after school. I was in that courtroom getting to business. And I was going to be a criminal defense attorney. Life happened after I graduated with my bachelor's. Family stuff happened, and I had an experience with an attorney, and albeit they were doing their job, I didn't like the way they made me feel. And then I started to wonder, like, I don't know. And then a couple years later, I ended up in a social work program. that's the story. But I never intentionally sought out social work. And remember, I was ignorant. I thought social workers took away people's kids. I knew about CPS. I didn't know about how deep and diverse the field and practice of social work was. And so once I got into my program, I was into it. And, mental health really intrigued me. Learning about how to work with individuals who struggle with substances intrigued me as well, just because I know what those types of things do to families. So I wanted to be the one on the opposite end, trying to help to mitigate, navigate, and kind of mesh some of those things together.
And when you actually started doing your program and you went through it, did it start to become clearer to you as to what it was that you wanted to do from a social work perspective? Or did you, when you completed it, did you still feel like you were trying to find your footing and navigate which route you wanted to go?
No, it was clear. It was clear that I was going to work in mental health and substance abuse from the beginning. And that's what I did. That's what I've done my whole career. So that part was clear of what part of social work I belonged in.
Mhm.
And now, the pivot is just using those skills to focus on athletes. But I've been working with individuals for 13 years in the areas of mental health and substance use.
Mhm. And you've had, since you started No Flag, No Foul, you've had the opportunity to have different experiences in this space, whether it's different sports conferences or a program that you're currently a part of through NYU. I'm curious to
I'm
know.
done.
Oh well, congratulations, congratulations.
Done.
What would you say you've learned about the space that has become more apparent to you during that time, and or what have you learned through business and just doing business in general with No Flag, No Foul?
So from being a clinician and the owner of my LLC, No Flag No Foul, I've learned a lot about just making sure that I keep my boundaries in terms of business. Because people will try, whether intentionally or unintentionally, to get you to do what they want you to do. And it just doesn't align with how you move with integrity. So just to keep my eyes and ears open, and looking and watching for those signs. um, you know, every client's not going to be for me, and I understand that, and I'm not for every client. That's why we have representation. That's why we have so many great clinicians doing great work in this space, so that there's enough to go around for everyone, and hopefully everyone can find a good fit, for someone who aligns with their beliefs, and that they can build trust with and kind of really get down and get this work done. So that's something that I've learned and kind of been very cautious of, and not being too eager when business comes if it's not the right business. um, but being in the space, I've gotten to meet so many great clinicians. I've just been kind of in awe of some of the work that has been done and is being done, um, through athletics and mental health. And that is just that I feel like I'm a little bit late to the party, but which is great. I'm right on time for for my alignment and how it's supposed to work for me. But I've gotten to join some professional organizations. There's the Alliance of Social Workers in Sport, and I had no idea that this has been around for 11 years now. They're celebrating their 11th annual symposium in later this summer. And I was like, wow, 11 years? Had no idea this organization existed. I did get to participate with ASP, the Association of Applied Sports Psychologists, in a institute last year. It was a We Lead Institute, and the theme was BIPOC women in sports. And when I tell you, this was an all-star status event. So just to be in the room, with some of these people and just to be able to learn from them. And as you mentioned, I just completed my sports social work certification through NYU. And my professor, Dr. Lena Green, is amazing. Black woman running this program. And just the opportunities that she was able to afford to us as her students just off of her reputation and connections that she's built over the years doing this work, I thought was just amazing.
And do you have any projects on the horizon or organizations, institutions that you can see yourself working with, or anything in the pipeline you might be able to tell us about?
So you mean like something I'm actually working on, or like what's my crystal ball type of thing?
Crystal ball, yeah.
Where's my camera? Get Rich Paul on the phone. Anybody got a line? I'm trying to be with the winning team. I'm clutch, come through in the clutch, and I can do it all. So that's my crystal ball and where I would like to land or partner with or contract with to do some work with his organization. I think just from listening to his testimony and reading his book, like he's someone who gets it and understands what it's like to have to create a space for you to do what you love and for people to maybe wonder if you're capable of it or if you're qualified to do it. Like he gets that. And I feel like that's kind of what I've done with No Flag, No Foul is created my own lane to do what I love. And I didn't wait for anybody to give me permission to do it. I know that I've been doing the work, so it's going to manifest. And that's what I tell my clients. Now, if you're not doing the work, I tell them it's going to manifest too. So, but as long as you know that you're doing the work and you trust in what you're doing, it's going to show.
And I'm wearing this WNBA hoodie purposely because of our love for sports, basketball, all those good things. But I need a hot take in terms of women in sports. It could be women on the court, on the field, women in the front office, C-suite, whatever. I need to know what's your hot take or your any immediate thoughts that come to mind about women in sports.
So this is like something that I has always weighed with me. And I could get some of the details wrong, so I don't want to completely misspeak about this. But the gist of it is that Allison Felix, which I mentioned was one of my favorite athletes, became pregnant and she was signed to Nike at the time. And basically, her deal didn't continue.
Okay.
And so you see them doing all these great things, and everybody makes mistakes. I don't know if they consider that as a mistake or not. I don't know. But it definitely was a bad look and it made a statement. But when you see the Asia campaigns and you see, the commercial with all the ladies and Jordan Childs and everyone, it's like Nike's doing all these great things. So part of me is like, yes, please continue this work. But had what happened with Allison not happened, would it be the same? Because she ended up advocating for pregnant women in sports. And they've been like lobbying and creating these policies for women who, get pregnant and trying to protect their rights as athletes. So they've made a lot of ground with their work that they've been doing with that. But she also created her own shoe that she owns. And she's standing on business. But that definitely wasn't a good look or a good time for women in sports. And again, I don't know all the details, but essentially Nike didn't honor what it was told that they were supposed to be honored. She had been an athlete with them for years, and then she has a pregnancy, and it's like, what do we do with this? No, you know what to do with this.
Yeah.
But it just makes me wonder, like, had that not happened and there were some, backlash and things like that, are they cognizant of that now and really trying to make sure that they don't do that again.
Yeah, of course. And are there any women in the industry that you look up to, let's say, who work in sports and not necessarily an athlete?
Yeah, so Dr. Angel Brutus, she was at one of the presenters at the Wheatley Institute that I participated in or was selected for last year through ASP. She is the head of mental health for the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee, and she is phenomenal. Just willing to pour into people, willing to help people grow in the space as clinicians in sport. So I've definitely been following her career and trying to learn, different things about kind of like what to do to kind of get where I want to be. And I think that she's a great example of that. I had a consultation with her because she does consulting work too for her business. And I just remember her telling me she don't know me from nobody. We just got a 15-minute free consultation. You know how you signed up on the calendar. And I was just, expressing to her kind of some thoughts that had started to pop in my mind as I was trying to make this pivot, and also being in a social work discipline and not like psychology. And she was like, let me tell you right now, ain't no hierarchy in this space. And I was like, all right, bet. I got you. I heard you. And she's right, So that was just something that I needed to hear. And I was grateful that she was like, don't don't get to doing that now.
Right.
Because you can be here just as well as anybody else can. Asia Nicole, I think that she's dope. I think that she stands on business. I just coincidence that she is clutch, but no, I think that she's awesome, and I read her book and it helped me out in a lot of ways as I was again trying to make this pivot into sport and just learning about business. I never saw myself as an entrepreneur. I thought I had to work for somebody for the rest of my life. I had and I'm not a full-time entrepreneur, now, but that just never was on my radar. I never saw that for myself in a million years. So just, learning how to pivot.
Yeah. And so what do you see, what's next for you? What are next up for the business? What's next up for you, and what do you have coming up?
Just growing, for the business, looking for contracts. I would like to contract with groups or organizations. I want to grow. My goal would be to be able to be a full-time entrepreneur, to grow and to scale. But I would love to partner, too. Partner with different organizations, do some contract work, and just start spreading my wings, stretching my shoulders out a little bit in this space. I'm excited. And I have my sports social work certification, so that's something that's going to help me propel, as it's some additional documented experience, if you will, with sports specific and athlete specific services. So I'm excited about that, and my program was just a phenomenal experience. Got to go to New York a couple times and learn from social worker who works for the MLB League, Also a social worker who works for the NBA league. Social workers are everywhere. I know I've said that, like, but I don't know if people really get it. Like, social workers literally are everywhere.
Hmm. And because it is Mental Health Awareness Month, what's one thing that you want people to do or take into account with it being Mental Health Awareness Month?
I want people to know that, like, as long as we have breath in our body, like, there's something we can do about it. I One of my, like, what hurts me is like, and this is like deep part of the mental health aspect, but when people, unfortunately harm themselves or do things, and I just feel like they think that it's no way out, or like that has to be their result. And I truly feel like there's always a way for us to figure it out. And as a social worker, we are allowed to figure it out. We are problem solvers, brainstormers. Like, there's always something that can be done. Like, it's not final if we are still here and we're still able to, like, let's get a plan together. So I just want people to be aware of that, and just, understand that there's always someone willing to help, listen, and just don't feel like you have to suffer or be alone in whatever you're going through.
That's powerful. Well, we appreciate you for coming on the podcast today, especially helping us kick off May with it being Mental Health Awareness Month.
Yes.
And appreciate the work that you are doing, especially with these athletes. I've told you before that it's definitely needed and necessary, and glad that you have stepped out on faith in order to develop this and see it through and build it out to see where it can go, how many people you can help, how many people you can serve, because there is a need for it, a big need for it. And I think that even though there has been some steps in the right direction in terms of development with all these major leagues and major sports and sports professionals and young people, it's still a long ways to go. So we appreciate you being at the forefront, or at least being willing to be at the forefront of that change.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Mental health is near and dear to my heart, and so is sports. So it just makes sense for me to put the pedal to the metal on making sure that I'm able to make my impact where I feel like it will be felt the greatest.
Absolutely. And everybody, watch. Oh, before I forget, your handles, your website. How can people get in touch with you if they got some athletes they want you to work with? If they want to follow your journey, they want to learn more about the brand. Where can they find you?
Yes, so noflagnofile.com is my website. I am on LinkedIn, Angelique R. Turner, LMSW. And the business Instagram is noflagnofile_LLC. So that's where you can find me. I'll be around. I'm always available. I'm ready to work. So just, reach out.
Make sure that y'all tap in. Everybody watching, listening. We'll talk. We'll talk to you soon. Peace.